Hey everyone, this is part 4 of my 100 Bullets coverage. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down issues 20 through 30, so that is 11 issues, so we are going to be covering a lot of ground in this one. Let's dive into it. 100 Bullets, Volume 4. 100 Bullets, Volume 4, A Foregone Tomorrow, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Eduardo Risso. 100 Bullets, Issue 20. The Mimic. This issue takes place in New York City, in Central Park. Joseph Shepard, the so-called warlord of the Trust, is having a meeting with Benito Medici. Benito is the son of Augustus Medici. Augustus is one of the heads of the families in the Trust, probably the most important member of the Trust, the kind of unofficial leader. When Augustus passes away one day, Benito will take over. So Benito and Shepard meet in the park. They sit on a park bench and talk. Benito passes on a message that his father, Augustus, is very angry with Shepard. Shepard told them that Graves and the Minutemen were dead, and now it turns out they are not? Benito asks, so what happened? Shepard answers, I wish I could tell you. Benito to this responds, I wish I could tell you. Now does that mean you don't know? Or that there are extenuating circumstances which prevent you? Now in truth, Shepard was supposed to wipe out the Minutemen, but instead he helped Graves and the Minutemen go into hiding, sort of acting against the real wishes of the Trust. He told the Trust though that they were dead. And now Shepard has to explain that, well, he was wrong. Benito tells Shepard, look, you were always straight with me and taught me a lot. When you reported mission accomplished, I believed that you believed it was. Shepard, playing dumb, says, I saw the bodies. Benito jumps in and says, well, obviously not the bodies, right? So why is Graves still alive? Shepard replies, that's a good question, but not the important one. What is he up to? Benito to this says, well, that's an important question. I'm sure it's no surprise that my father would like some answers. So, you got any? Shepard replies, theories, nothing concrete. It's difficult to see if Graves has a specific agenda at the moment. But it's there, I know. It seems he's incorporated into his, Benito cuts in, his game? Even the Trust seems to be aware of Graves' attaché game. Shepard corrects Benito and says, it's not a game, Benito, not to him, it's his mission. Benito asks, well then why don't we abort his mission then? Shepard to this says, I thought that's what we tried. Benito corrects him saying, no, you tried to kill him and that didn't work, okay? So what if you hit him hard, right where it hurts? Shepard questions, and where might that be? Benito answers, his missions, the game. Take away his ability to play it. The attachés, the guns, all of it, just cut him off. Shepard, he thinks on it and answers, Benito, hypothetically that makes sense. In reality, we'd have war. For the moment, I suggest we wait. Benito says his dad is not in a patient mood. Shepard says, well then we'll both have to convince him. For the time being, it would be prudent to let Graves make all the moves. Let a pattern emerge. Benito questions, what about the Minutemen? Shepard says, as far as I know, 2 are alive, Lano and Cole Burns. But we have to assume there's a chance they're all still kicking. Now, not every Minuteman saw eye to eye with Graves given the situation. I wouldn't put it past Graves to sacrifice some of them. Benito then changes the line of questioning. He asks, did you know Graves was alive before he made his move against Megan Dietrich? Shepard answers, yes, he surfaced a few months ago in Chicago. Benito then questions, well then why didn't you inform the Trust? Shepard to this says, why would I do that? Benito answers, why? Because you work for them. Shepard to this says, service, not servitude, Benito. It was more important to learn what Graves was planning. Remember, before I was retired, I was a Minuteman. I worked for Graves. Benito tells Shepard, "You aren't retired, you are promoted to Warlord of the Trust." Shepard continues, "Graves, he made his move. He wanted the Trust to know that he was still alive, that he could still touch them." As their meeting starts wrapping up, Shepard and Benito begin leaving the park. Shepard tells Benito, "One thing you should understand about Graves, Benito. He has a very rigid code of conduct. It's what drives him. Every decision he makes is in keeping with his code. And while his strict adherence to it is his alone, he believes sharing it is a necessary gesture. It gives him purpose. It's what made him so valuable to the Trust. It was part of the job. Now, it's personal. It's now his personal code, which if we play our cards right, will be his undoing. So we'll handle this like he would, knowing full well that futile action is no viable way of controlling the world, and only action that alters it carries weight." Eventually, Shepard and Benito get into a taxicab and drive off together. From this issue, it is still a little unclear exactly what are the motivations of Shepard and Agent Graves. Are they allies, are they enemies, or are they something in between? So far, it seems like they are somewhere in the middle there. Moving on to the next issue, 100 Bullets, issue 21, Sellfish and Out to Sea, part 1 of 2. We are introduced to two junkies. One is a man named Mikey, and the other is a man named Jack Daw. Jack Daw previously was one of Graves' Minutemen, although after the events of Atlantic City, he was put to sleep and his memories were repressed, and he has no recollection of his time as a Minuteman. And since then, he has just returned to his hometown where he works as a bouncer, working to pay for his severe drug addiction. So Mikey and Jack are in a dilapidated, abandoned building. Mikey scored some drugs and they are preparing to shoot them up. While Mikey is preparing the drugs, we see Jack has a handgun with him. Apparently Graves has already visited Jack and gave him the attaché case and the gun. This, however, is Mikey's first time seeing Jack with his gun. He asks him, "Where'd you get that piece?" Jack answers, "Got it from an old man. He gave me 100 bullets, too. I ain't shitting you, man, 100 bullets. Mikey asks, "Do you know this guy?" Jack answers, "Nope." Mikey questions, "Well then why the hell would he give you 100 bullets? Jack to this answers, "To waste the shit that made me this way?" Mikey asks, "What way?" Jack answers, "Fucked up." Both of them shoot some drugs and give in to ecstasy. They enjoy their high for a bit. But then eventually, Mikey, he becomes curious more about this gun and these 100 bullets. He asks, "Alright, so what'd you do after this guy gave you the gun?" Jack, he then tells the story. After the old man gave him the gun, Jack, he went to work. He was working as a bouncer at a club where a band was playing. Jack went into the disgusting bathroom they had there and he snorted some coke off of the toilet. Then he got into an argument with his boss. His boss wants Jack out there on the floor, keeping the peace while the band performs. So Jack, he goes out where the concert is. The singer is riling his fans up. He's telling the crowd, "Yo, fuck these rent-a-cops, friends. You paid good money to have a good time, so why we gotta bow down to these fascist motherfuckers?" So the crowd starts getting really rowdy and they're jumping off of things, and Jack's no pushover. He starts beating the shit of tons of people in the crowd, and he was shortly fired after that. Jack, he then went for a walk. He took out the attaché case. He looked at the picture inside of it. He comments to himself, "Maybe that old man was right. Maybe I can fix things." Jack, he then goes to another bar. He talks to a few people there, and then eventually he starts hitting on a woman there. It's a punk-looking woman with purple hair and tons of piercings. Jack tells the girl, "You a stripper? You could be. Just look at you. You got a dynamite body." I used to live next to this other girl. She got famous from showing her boobs. And you, with them globes, you could go worldwide. Oh man, Jack's a real charmer, isn't he? This girl does not seem completely repulsed, however. Although the other men in the bar that seem to know this girl are pissed at Jack. Jack gets in another fight with these men, and then he leaves the bar and he's covered in blood. Jack, now having to find a new place to go, phones a girl he used to date named Cheryl. Jack goes over to her place. When Cheryl sees Jack all beat up, she asks, "What happened to you?" Jack answers simply, "Life." "You mind if I crash here tonight?" Cheryl questions, "Why, are you in no shape to drive?" Jack says, "I can drive, but I got no place to go." Cheryl to this says, "Life again?" Jack, he then starts drinking. Eventually, the two of them start arguing in a way when they bring up the past. Jack tells Cheryl, "I can be deep, honey. You never gave me any credit, even when we was going out." Cheryl replies, "Going out? We were living together, and I gave you every chance in the world. Hell, I was in love with you, Jack." Jack replies, "Hey, you cheated on me, remember?" Cheryl to this says, "And when you found out, you didn't even care." And Jack, now's the part where you tell me that you cheated on me too. Huh, Jack? Jack, he then fell asleep that night. 100 Bullets, issue 22, Sellfish and Out to Sea, part 2 of 2. Jack is continuing to tell the story to Mikey of the night he received the gun and the 100 bullets. Jack, he fell asleep in Cheryl's place, and then he woke up in the morning. He woke up to a guy named Mark. Mark is a friend of Cheryl's, and he's heard of Jack and is not impressed by him. Mark tells Cheryl, "I brought coffee." What's he doing here? Jack, overhearing, tells Mark, "Cool your jets, lover boy, I'm leaving." Jack, he then leaves his ex-girlfriend's place and goes to talk to his former boss, a guy named Gary. Jack talks with Gary a bit about how he recently lost his job, and then eventually Jack wants to buy some ketamine, which is a street drug better known as Special K. Jack's low on cash though, so Gary's a little uneasy giving him the drugs, but when Jack flashes his gun, Gary makes an exception. Jack then heads over to some sort of factory that packs fish. His brother David Daw works here. When David sees his brother Jack sitting on top of a dumpster, he tells Jack, "Garbage like you's supposed to be in the dumpster, not on it." Jack tells his brother to can it. They talk some more. Eventually, David tells Jack, "Why don't you go and do what you do best and go fuck yourself?" Jack replies, "Yo, why the hostility, bro?" David answers, "Maybe because you crapped out on the family for all them years after Dad took his life." "Why are you here, Jack?" Jack explains he's here to see their mom. He asks if she's around. David answers, "She's in the office, Jack, but do her a favor and don't go in." Jack disobeys his brother's advice and goes into the office to talk to his mother. His mother greets him with a hug, but then she asks, "You still on those drugs, ain't ya?" Jack, of course, can't deny it. The two of them talk for a bit, and then eventually Jack starts talking about his dad that committed suicide. And in his suicide note, his dad wrote, "Here I am." This had an effect on Jack. Jack tells his mom, "He said that like nobody noticed him. Nobody." Jack then asks his mom, "Do you think it runs in the family?" Jack's mom answers, "What, mental illness? I don't know." Jack answers, "No, not that. Suicide." Jack's mom, not being very kind-hearted, replies, "You mean weakness? It might." Jack's mom then takes notice of Jack's briefcase. She asks, "You got yourself a job there, Jackie?" "I thought only a working man carried a briefcase." Jack to this answers, "Yeah, I guess you might say I have a job to do. That's why I'm here." Jack, he then goes into the bathroom that is connected to his mom's office, and he continues talking to his mom through the bathroom door. Jack opens the attaché case, and he has the gun and the bullets in front of him. Jack seems to be contemplating committing suicide. He asks his mom, "Do you think I'm a bad person?" Jack's mom answers, "Jackie, you've been away for so long, how am I supposed to even know what you are?" The story then cuts back to the present day. with Jack telling Mikey this story. Mikey hearing the story says, "Man, that's harsh. But I can never kill my mom, that's just wrong." Jack says, "I didn't kill my mom." Mikey, confused by the story, says, "I thought you did, so what did you do?" Jack answers, "Nothing. She gave me some money and I ain't seen her for a few months." Mikey complains about Jack's story and he says, "Man, this story's lame. I mean, where was the action, man? It started good, you got a gun and 100 bullets, but then you just kind of drone on about how your life's all messed up and your relationships are all bad and how much you suck. Get to the frickin' point, man, okay? How's it end? Who did you pop?" Jack, he asks Mikey, "Do you think I'm a bad person?" Mikey replies, "Geez Louise, no, I ain't saying that. I'm just saying you're a bad storyteller is all." As they continue talking, Mikey, he notices a weird smell. It smells terrible. Something in here is really bad. As Mikey wanders around trying to find the source of the smell, he eventually finds a basement. And when he looks down into the basement, he finds a whole bunch of dead bodies of a whole bunch of addicts. Mikey, seeing all the dead bodies, questions, "Jesus, hell, what's going on here?" That is when Jack answers, "The old man, he gave me 100 bullets. 100 untraceable bullets. So I figure I really only gotta save one." As the issue ends, we see a photograph. The photograph was in the attaché case that Graves gave Jack. The photo is of the man that ruined Jack's life. And the man in that photo is Jack himself. So how to interpret this story is that when Jack saw the photograph was him, that he supposedly is the cause of ruining his own life, he thought about it. He thought about committing suicide, just like his father did. He sought out the people in his life that he thought could help him decide if he should kill himself or not. He talked to his former boss, his ex-girlfriend, his brother David, and his mother. Unable to work things out, he asked his mom if she thought suicide ran in the family, and she instead replied that suicide was just weakness, and that weakness might indeed run in their family. Jack, he then made his decision, and he stuck around, and he used that gun to kill a whole bunch of addicts, and he would stash them in this abandoned house, and when he would kill the addicts, he would take their money and drugs for himself. And as Jack said at the end of this story, he was given 100 untraceable bullets, but he really only needs to save one for himself. Now at the end of this issue, Jack, the Minuteman, is still unawoken. He still does not remember his past. What is Graves' motivation here? I believe Graves either wanted Jack to off himself and be done with it, or finally really push Jack into going clean, where Jack may be useful to Graves again. 100 Bullets, Issue 23, Red Prince Blues, Part 1 of 3. This next story arc is going to be a real plot-heavy one. The various families of the Trust are going to convene in Atlantic City, and they are going to have a meeting to discuss the threat of Agent Graves' return. When the issue opens in an Atlantic City casino, in a private poker game, a player named Hank Kowalski is playing poker. He is desperate to win some money. He's got a wife at home, Mary Kowalski, and she's sick. Hank, he's in this game, but he only has a little bit of money. And one of the other players at the table bets 15 grand. Hank wants to stay in. He thinks he's got a winning hand, but he doesn't have the cash. Hank asks the dealer, Tong, if they can stake him the cash for the bet. Tong, he has to phone his boss, the floor manager. Tong, he makes the call. He phones up a guy named Dominic Cavallo. Tong on the phone says, "Hey Dom, it's Tong. I got a player in a sweet game. He wants to go into the house for 12 grand, 12 large. Dominic's considering going along with this, but he asks who would we be covering, and Tong says Hank Kowalski. Dominic, as soon as he hears Hank's name, says, "No, we're not staking him," and he hangs up the phone. Tong then has to inform Hank that the bet was a no-go. Hank is not allowed to call the guy that bet against him. Hank is really pissed when he learns this. He throws his cards on the table. He had 2 jacks in his hand and there was a jack in the flop. Definitely a very strong hand. Hank angry asks, "Did you beat that, you fucking prick?" The guy that Hank was playing against was Benito Medici. We met Benito for the first time a few issues ago. He is the son of the head of the trust, Augustus Medici. Benito answers Hank, "I won, didn't I?" We'll never know if Benito actually had a stronger hand than Hank or not. Later on, Benito goes through the casino's hotel. He goes up to the penthouse suite of a woman named Megan Dietrich. Megan was a character we first saw in issues 4 and 5 of 100 Bullets. She is another head of a family in the trust. Benito enters Megan's suite. Megan just got out of the shower and she is changing her clothes. Megan and Benito's relationship does not seem to be romantic in nature. There does seem to be some sexual tension between them, but it more so seems to be kind of a sibling relationship between an older sister and a younger bratty brother. Benito and Megan then both start smoking cigarettes and they go on the balcony to talk. Megan asks Benito, "I heard about your little face-to-face with Mr. Shepard." Benito asks, "Do you trust Shepard?" Megan answers, "Benito dear, I don't trust anybody." Benito tells Megan, "Come on, Shepard's a good guy." Megan teases, "He's the father you never had?" Benito to this answers, "I have a father." Megan, giving advice, says, "Yes, you do, and you should try to learn from him rather than one of his soldiers." Anyway, enough of this conversation. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk business once Augustus and the others arrive. For now, let's go for a swim. Daniel Perez is here. Daniel Perez is the head of another family in the trust. Megan continues and says, "Daniel called just before you showed up. We're meeting down by the pool." Benito says, "I didn't pack a bathing suit." Megan pulls out one of her bathing suit bottoms and tells him, "Well, then you'll just have to buy one unless you'd rather wear one of mine. That is, if you think it'll fit." Benito replies, "Looks like it might be a little snug." Megan to this answers, "Really? And here I was wondering if you have what it takes to fill it out." Elsewhere across town, Hank Kowalski, the guy that lost in the poker game to Benito earlier, he returns home to his sick wife, Mary Kowalski. Hank tries to care for his wife, but then he just loses it. He starts punching the fridge. His wife asks him, "What's wrong?" Hank answers, "I had him, Mary, I had him. This wise-ass kid. I was holding trips. Our boat, sweetheart, it was coming in, but this kid, he was pulling cards all day. Real lucky, like you don't see that much. And he raised me more and I was short and I went to the house, but that damn kid throwing money around like it don't matter. It ain't right, Mary. Just ain't right." Back over to the hotel. Benito, Megan, and Daniel Perez all hang out poolside. Daniel greets Benito warmly. He says, "Is your father holding up?" Benito answers, "You can ask him yourself, later." Daniel, he then senses some tension between Benito and Megan. Daniel asks, "Is there trouble between you two?" Megan answers, "Nah, nothing like that. Benito likes playing cops and robbers is all." "Nice suit, by the way. A bit baggy though, wouldn't you say?" Megan, she then dives into the pool. Daniel comments to Benito, "Megan certainly has a way with backhanded compliments, doesn't she?" Benito to this replies, "You mean she's a bitch, right?" As Megan swims, Daniel and Benito talk. Daniel explains that Megan's father had passed away recently, so Megan recently had to step up and become a head of one of the families of the trust, and she was forced to quickly take his seat and sink or swim. Benito, watching Megan, comments, "Looks like she learned a few strokes." Do you think she resents the fact that I don't seem to take my schooling seriously? Benito is referring to his reluctance to follow in his father's footsteps with as much gusto as maybe Megan would appreciate. Daniel answers, "No, I think she just resents the fact that you take your father for granted." Benito, you must understand that Augustus, besides being your father, is a great man, one of vision, who recognized that despite all of the Trust's successes, we could be better, more successful in our endeavors. Things had to change. Benito asks why. Daniel continues, to ensure peace. Benito questions, so the Minutemen had to die? Daniel answers, yes, to ensure peace. So the decision of the Trust to wipe out the Minutemen was spearheaded by Augustus, and Augustus had some allies like Daniel who were for this decision. Elsewhere, down on the casino floor, Hank Kowalski has returned. Hank goes over to the dealer Tong that was dealing him in the poker game earlier. Hank asks him, who is that kid from this morning that he was playing against? Tong says he doesn't know who he is, but check with Raffi out front. He's a guest here, Raffi would know. Tong then comments, how about that kid, huh? Lady Luck sure had her hand down his pants. Hank, he replies, yeah, he was lucky alright, but that last hand, I had him beat. Tong the dealer wasn't so sure about that, he says. I don't know, man. For how good things were going for him, he probably hit that flush. Hank to this says, bullshit. So why'd he bust me out then? Tong the dealer replies, I don't know about that. I mean, how'd he know you weren't gonna get floated no credit? Despite all of this logic, Hank, he still can't let it go. He says, I beat him. That was my money. I won. Tong tells Hank, not even close, buddy. Yeah, you're upset, I understand, but Jesus, Hank, you know you shouldn't be gambling at them private games if you can't afford to lose. Elsewhere on the casino floor, Benito is at the roulette table, and he is winning big. Benito is just a guy that is unusually lucky at everything. While he is gambling, he gets a call from his dad, Augustus. Augustus tells his son, I've arrived at the airport, I'm on my way to the hotel. Is everything in order? Benito answers, I guess. Augustus to this says, you guess, or it is? Benito replies, it is. Augustus to this says, good, see you soon. We see Hank, he goes outside to talk to the valet, a guy named Raffi. Hank asks, I'm looking for someone, a real good looking kid, bleached dyed hair, well-to-do I think. Raffi knows who Hank is asking about. He says, yeah, like his shit stinks like roses, right? Yeah, he's a guest here. Hank, he wants to know this guy's room number. Raffi, though, despite Hank offering him $50 for the information, is not going to give that out, as Benito and his family are too important, and they demand privacy. As Hank is disappointed to not get this information, he then sees a limo pull up, and Augustus gets out of that limo. Augustus is with his henchman bodyguard named Crete. Augustus is then greeted by Megan and Benito. Hank watches them from afar, annoyed. He is smoking his cigarette and staring daggers into Benito. That is when, all of a sudden, the Minuteman, Cole Burns, walks by. He asks Hank, you got some kind of hard-on for that kid? You know, the golden boy with the platinum hair. Cole tells Hank his name is Benito Medici. He's in room 3812. 100 Bullets, issue 24, Red Prince Blues, part 2 of 3. Some more members of the Trust have arrived in town. A woman named Maya Simone, who is one of the other heads of the families of the Trust. She is sitting beside Benito at a blackjack table. Mia asks Benito, Jesus, that makes how many hands you've won in a row? Benito answers, oh, you know, I don't really keep track. Mia responds, oh yeah? You're some kind of high roller? Working a system, ain't ya? Benito answers, who me? Nah, I'm just lucky. Benito tells the dealer, hit me, and then Megan walks up behind Benito and hits him in the back of the head. Benito frowns at Megan and says, I wasn't talking to you. Megan replies, I know, I'm just feeling neglected. Benito to this says, Megan, a girl like you could be stranded on a desert island with 50 men and she'd still feel that way. Megan, being a bitch back, replies, oh, what do you know about men, or girls like me for that matter? Eventually, Daniel Perez joins Mia and Megan and Benito and they all talk a little bit. Eventually, they all head out for dinner. Benito explains that his father, Augustus, won't be joining them as he is preparing for their meeting happening tomorrow. Up in Augustus's hotel suite, he is with a prostitute. She is on the bed, drinking some wine, while Augustus, naked, stares out the window, looking at the lights. The prostitute asks, why is he looking at the lights? Augustus answers, they make me feel good. The girl responds, I thought that's what I was for. Augustus continues, no, you're here to make me forget. The girl then walks over to Augustus and holds him. She asks, so you like looking at the lights, huh? Why is that? You work for the power company? Augustus responds, work for? No, I am the power company. Elsewhere in Atlantic City, Cole Burns and Agent Graves are staring into the water. Cole says to Graves ominously, we've got us some unfinished business, boss. Graves responds, that we do, Cole. That we do. Over at the hospital, Hank Kowalski has taken his wife to get treatment. She took a turn for the worse. Hank does not have insurance though, so it does not look like he is going to get his wife help. Back over to Cole and Graves. They discuss their plans about getting a little revenge on the Trust. Revenge for the Trust trying to take them out earlier. Cole wonders, are they going to make their move tonight? But Graves says, not tonight. We wait until all 13 families are in town, when they feel their strongest. Cole asks, well then what? Graves answers, then we touch them. The two of them head to a bar to get some drinks. Cole asks, how does Shepard fit into what you've got planned? Graves says, he doesn't. This is strictly our play here, Cole. For now, it's best we leave Shepard up on his tightrope. Cole asks, and if he falls? Graves answers, well then he's got a net. Shepard can take care of himself, always could. The two of them order some drinks. Cole orders a tequila with some limes, and Graves orders some Russian vodka, chilled. The two of them cheers and then give a toast to the Minutemen, past, present, and future. We then jump back over to the hotel. Benito, Megan, Daniel Perez, and Mia Simone have returned from their dinner. They begin heading to the elevator to go up for the night. Megan asks Benito, so Benito, you up for a good time? Benito, looking at the casino floor, says, well, the casino's right there, so maybe he'll get a few games in. Megan responds, so it is, but I'd be careful, you're off your game. Benito responds, am I? As the elevator door closes, Megan tells Benito, yeah, you just passed on a sure thing. Nighty-night. Megan teasing Benito, insinuating that he could have got laid if he went up in the elevator with her. Mia Simone tells Benito, I think she likes you. Benito responds, she likes a lot of things. Mice, baby birds, a diamond-studded scratching post. Mia jokes, you're not wearing any jewels, are you? As Benito walks on with Mia, someone comes over to deliver him a note. When Benito reads the note, he says bye to Mia and says he has to take care of something. Benito heads outside and goes down to the beach, and there, Mr. Shepard is waiting for him. Benito asks, I didn't expect to see you here, Mr. Shepard. Did my father bring you in? Shepard answers, no, as far as Augustus is concerned, I'm not here, and we should keep it that way. What I have to say is between you and me. Benito, he gets distracted because he sees Dizzy in the distance. Dizzy is with Shepard for now. Benito asks, who's that? Shepard answers, that's Dizzy. Benito, taken aback by Dizzy's beauty, says, it sure is. Elsewhere across town, Hank Kowalski, now desperate for some money, and now growing even more and more pissed that Benito beat him in that poker game earlier, decides to take some drastic actions. He goes down to a pawn shop. He wants to buy a gun. Hank hands over all the money he has, although he's still short. So Hank, he takes off his wedding ring and hands that over too. The guy in the pawn shop, he accepts it, and he gives Hank a gun. He tells him it's not registered, there's no serial numbers. You couldn't find a piece any cleaner. 100 Bullets, Issue 25, Red Prince Blues, Part 3 of 3. Will Hank kill Benito and get the money he needs for his wife? Will Agent Graves and Cole Burns get some revenge on the Trust? How will the Trust's meeting go? What will they discuss? Will Megan and Benito put their childish rivalry behind them and finally bang? Let us find out in the conclusion of this story arc. The heads of the 13 families of the Trust are finally having their meeting. Augustus Medici is leading them. He says, "I always found it ironic that our founders named this organization the Trust, and ever since, we held only mistrust for each other. Why was that the case? Because of the Minutemen. Now things between us have changed. The 13 families act as one. After generations, we finally live up to our name. Why? Because there are no Minutemen." Javier Vasco, head of the Vasco family, asks, "No Minutemen, Augustus? Graves is alive." Augustus replies, "And he's not alone, Javier, but he's no Minuteman, not any longer. Alive or dead, none of them are. The Minutemen worked for us, so unless Graves is secretly in service to one of you, he isn't a Minuteman. He's an enemy." We see elsewhere in the hotel, Hank Kowalski is walking around, trying to find Benito. Back to the meeting. Daniel Perez, head of the Perez family, says, "You're right, Augustus. Graves is an enemy, and potentially a very dangerous one." Augustus responds, "You think so, Daniel? I don't. Has the thought occurred to any of you that we've achieved the goal the originators of the Trust had in mind when they came together at a table, much like this one, I imagine, and agreed to cooperate, to set aside their differences, to build a better future? My friends, that future is here, right in this room. The question is, what shall we do with it?" Down on the casino floor, Benito is gambling, and he is winning big. Benito is just a very lucky guy. Back to the meeting. Axel Nagel, head of the Nagel family. He makes a comment. He says, "Our colleague of the Medici family speaks of the future and of our founders. I wonder what kind of future they'd envision for the Trust without the Minutemen." Javier Vasco, he comments, "The Minutemen were put in place to protect us from each other." This Javier Vasco, he seems to be a little bit against the elimination of the Minutemen. He feels that they served a purpose to protect the different families from each other. Augustus, he replies, "With all due respect to the Vasco family, you're wrong, Javier. Protection? No. Redistribution? Yes. That is what the Minutemen did, and I'll admit, the Minutemen were necessary, if for nothing else, to keep the pie evenly distributed, as it were. We needed that. An absolute no family could question. Take both yours, the Vascos, and the Nagel family. You've had your disputes, ones that the Minutemen settled. Judge, jury, and executioner, maintaining the status quo amongst the families." Mia Simone, head of the Simone family, she says that the Vascos have had a particularly aggressive history with the Trust. Javier, he doesn't like hearing this. Augustus stops the infighting and says, "Look, this is just history. Chapters in a book we've agreed to close. Look at us now, all on the same new page." Javier, unhappy, comments, "Yes, one written on Medici stationery." Daniel Perez jumps in, "True, but signed by the head of every family, including you, Javier." Mia Simone, she jumps in and says, "The Minutemen, they not only policed us, they were also our muscle in the world." Megan comments, "Until they cramped up." Daniel Perez, he comments that he believes that Graves is still a threat to the Trust. Augustus, he answers, "Oh yes, he still is, but Graves is just a minor one, and we have factors in play that will keep him just that." Javier replies, "Shepard, he failed us once." Axel Nagel jumps in, "We used Shepard incorrectly. This time we leave Mr. Shepard hiding in the grass, where he's most effective, no?" Daniel Perez replies, "Don't underestimate Graves, Augustus. He will strike at us, and when he does, it will be directed at you." Daniel, he then gets a text on his phone, and he has to excuse himself from the meeting. Augustus tells Megan, "Why don't you join Daniel?" So both Daniel Perez and Megan Dietrich leave the meeting together. While they are riding the elevator up to their penthouses, Daniel is talking to Megan about the meeting, he says. "This new direction we've moved in, Augustus initiated it. He has a lot to lose if we all don't embrace it as he has." Megan, trepidatious, replies, "I hope this embrace doesn't lead to any broken backs." Daniel seems to have faith in Augustus, though. He says what Augustus is out to do is change the world, make it a better place for our children. When they reach the lobby, Megan sees Benito. She breaks off from Daniel and goes to talk to him. Megan, annoyed at Benito's attitude to her, asks him, "What's your problem?" Benito tells Megan, "What? Do you know who you're talking to? My name is Benito Medici. You know what that means? I got no frickin' problems." As they are walking and talking, both Benito and Megan head into Benito's hotel suite. Inside the suite, a cleaning lady is tied up with duct tape over her mouth, and Hank Kowalski is in there waiting for Benito. He has a gun in his hands. Elsewhere on the Atlantic City boardwalk, Daniel Perez goes to meet with Agent Graves. Graves was the one that texted Daniel while he was in the Trust's meeting. Graves comments when he sees Daniel, "I wasn't sure you'd come." Perez replies, "I mean, you messaged me." Graves answers, "Yeah, but what sort of guarantee is that? You could have ignored it." Daniel Perez to this answers, "I considered the source." Perez was curious what Graves had to say. Perez sits down on a bench beside Graves and the two of them talk. Back up in Benito's suite, Hank Kowalski tells Benito, "I want my money." Benito, playing dumb, says, "Your money? I don't got your money. All I got is my money." Hank to this says, "Well then, I want your money." Benito says, "Well, I don't have my money." Hank, getting frustrated, replies, "Don't play stupid with me. I had 3 jacks. I had you beat. So just give me my money." Benito, remembering, replies, "Oh yeah, you thought I was bluffing." Hank, he then tries to play the sympathy card. He says, "Look, I just need it. My wife, she's sick." Benito, after hearing Hank's sob story, says, "Well, that's quite a story. Almost makes me want to give you the cash, but all I got is a couple hundred on me. See, the house holds my bank. You know what that means?" Hank starts threatening to shoot Benito. Benito, he continues and says, "Relax. All it means is we gotta go downstairs to get your money." Back down on the boardwalk, Graves and Daniel Perez are talking. Graves asks, "Did you do that favor I asked?" Perez answers, "Tell Augustus that you'd be coming for him?" "Yes." Graves questions, "How'd he take it?" Daniel answers, "Who knows Augustus better than you, Graves? He was your greatest friend in the whole world. You know exactly how he took it." Graves then smirks. Graves, he then comments, "It's too bad you don't understand, Daniel. What Augustus has planned will ultimately bring the trust to its knees." Cole Burns then walks over with 2 hot dogs in his hands. He sits beside Daniel. Daniel immediately gets nervous when he sees Cole. Daniel, he questions, "Is there anything else? Another message for Augustus?" "Well, if there's not, then I should be getting back." Graves replies, "Yes, you probably should. Daniel, you'll be missed." Back inside the hotel, Benito, Megan, and Hank go down to the main floor. Benito asks Hank, "Who you like in tonight's game, Lakers or the Sixers?" Hank, he replies, "The Sixers." Benito questions, "With all those injuries?" "I don't think so." Benito tells Hank to wait here. Hank is discreetly hiding his gun. He wants to keep Megan, though, as insurance that Benito won't run off on him. Benito, he jokes back, "Good idea. If I do anything funny, you blast her." Benito walks away for a bit. He goes over to the gambling desk, he talks to them for a while, and then he comes back over to Hank. Benito asks Hank, "So I beat you out of what, 5 or 6 grand?" Hank replies, 12 grand. Benito says, "All right then, okay, 12 grand. So I got that right here in this pocket. But over here in this other pocket, I got $100,000 bet on tonight's game. You're a gambling man, right? So pick a pocket." Hank, he thinks on it, and he says, "Give me the bet." Benito does. He tells Hank, "Good luck." Once Hank walks away, Megan comments, "That was brilliant. You know, we could have had that bastard dead before the hour's up. But what you just did to him, he'll regret for the rest of his lonely life." Benito asks, "You think so?" Megan replies, "Of course. You said yourself the team you liked had all those injuries." Benito to this says, "I did, didn't I? Must be why I put his money on the Lakers instead." Megan, confused, replies, "Oh, so you gave him the money then? He's gonna win?" Benito, smoking a cigarette, replies, "No, I gave him a choice, and he took the chance." I can relate. I mean, we're all just playing the odds now, despite how my father has stacked them in our favor, and the truth is, when it gets right down to it, we might not know the rules of the game. We see back down on the boardwalk. Agent Graves and Cole Burns have killed Daniel Perez. They stabbed a knife into his back, and he bled out. This, in a way, is Graves sending a message to the Trust, to Augustus. 100 Bullets, issue 26, Mr. Branch and the Family Tree. This is a recap issue just going over the story that we've already been following along with. The framing device for this issue is Mr. Branch has picked up a prostitute in Paris named Echo Memoria. Echo Memoria is a very attractive-looking woman, and we will actually be seeing her coming back into the story in some future issues. But yes, Mr. Branch brings this Echo back to his apartment, and when he finds out that she does not speak English, Branch decides why not just tell her everything of this whole conspiracy he has been investigating into the Trust and the Minutemen. So anyway, that is all this issue is. It's just Branch going over various things we already know. So I'm not going to go over the story, but I do want to point out a few pretty nice looking splash pages by some guest artists. We got this pretty badass picture of Megan looking fine, shooting this guy in this bed. We have a Jim Lee picture of Alano killing a whole bunch of people in a pool. I also really liked this one of Graves and his Minutemen, and there's also Shepard in the background. The other Minutemen characters whom we haven't really met yet, their face is kind of obscured. Here's an image of Loop in prison, and here's an image of Augustus Medici looking very badass smoking a cigar. Anyway, once Branch and this Echo Memoria are finished with their sex, Echo takes off with some money. When Branch wakes up, he looks at a picture of Dizzy, whom he met several issues ago. He comments to himself, "Dizzy, you poor girl, if you understood what Graves has in mind for you, you would have used that gun on yourself." 100 Bullets, issue 27, Idle Chatter. This issue is another self-contained story, and much like issue 11, Heartbreak Sunny Side Up, this issue is also in Wizard Magazine's list of 100 best single-issue comics since you were born. This issue was ranked number 11 on that list. When the issue opens up, we see one of the Minutemen in a hospital. This is the Minuteman known as Milo Garrett, aka the Bastard. Milo Garrett had some sort of accident, and now his face is all injured, and it is wrapped in bandages. Milo, at this point in time, has not been awoken yet. He still does not remember his past as a Minuteman. Agent Graves visits him in this hospital. He gives him the attaché case. And Graves tells Milo, "What happened to you was no accident. This ought to make it easier." Milo asked, "What is it?" Graves answered, "Proof and payback." Graves eventually leaves Milo and tells him, "From the looks of things, you've got plenty of time to mull over the offer." As Graves leaves Milo's hospital room, he is walking through the halls. And as he is walking through the halls, he runs into a man he knows. This man is the baseball player Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio is a real-life figure. He was a center fielder who played his entire 13-year career for the New York Yankees. He was widely considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time, best known for setting the record for the longest hitting streak in baseball, and during his tenure, the Yankees won 9 World Series championships. He also at one point famously had a romantic relationship with Marilyn Monroe. Joe DiMaggio at this point in time was an old man. He would probably be about 84 years old. As Agent Graves is readying to leave the hospital, Joe recognizes Graves. He goes over to him. He grabs Graves by his arm. He asks, "Excuse me, do you remember who I am?" Graves answers, "Of course I do. I remember you after all. You were my hero." Joe to this replies, No, that's not what I meant. I meant, do you remember what you gave me, Agent Graves?" Graves, he thinks on it and answers, "Do I remember? That was a long time ago. A lot of time has passed since then." We see a flashback. Joe DiMaggio is visiting the grave of Marilyn Monroe. He drops off some roses at her tombstone. He comments, "God damn, I miss you." Agent Graves, in the cemetery there, he jumps in and says, "She was the most beautiful woman on the planet." Joe, he agrees with Graves. Graves continues, "And in everyone's eyes, she'll remain that way. Only advantage of dying young." Considering Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, I have a feeling this story is set shortly after that, sometime in the mid to early 60s. Graves comments to Joe, "Must be devastating losing the love of your life." Joe, he starts getting a little angry. He doesn't know who Graves is at this point. He questions, "You some sort of jerk reporter from one of them Hollywood rags sniffing around for a story? Well, she's dead, end of story. Why can't you boys let her rest in peace?" Graves to this answers, "It's not her peace I'm interested in." They talk for a few minutes more about how great Marilyn was and how their marriage probably would never have lasted though. Eventually, they talk about her death. Joe, he comments that Marilyn loved being famous. She thought it would make her happy, she lived for it, and she died because of it. Now, in real life, Marilyn Monroe died due to barbiturate overdose. The coroner's office ruled her death a probable suicide. Despite this, however, several conspiracy theories suggest murder or accidental overdose may have been the proposed cause of her death. Agent Graves, he then tells Joe, "It wasn't the sleeping pills that killed her, nor the alcohol. It was the Nembutol injected under her right breast." This shocks Joe. He says, "What?" Graves continues, "Accidental suicide? I'm afraid not. Purposeful murder? I'm afraid so." Joe, he begins growing angry. He tells Graves he doesn't know what he's talking about. Graves replies, "Your ex-wife was murdered. All the proof you need is in this attaché case, along with 100 rounds of untraceable ammunition which is yours to use, with complete immunity if you choose to go after her killer. Look it over. You'll see what I'm saying is true. She needed a lot of love, or at least she thought she did. Given time, she may have realized that one man had more love for her than she would ever need. That time was taken from her, stolen from you." We jump back now to the current day. Graves and Joe DiMaggio were talking some more. Joe, he asks Graves more about the attaché case that was given to him all those years ago. Graves can see that Joe is thinking about how he used the gun. Joe seems to have questions about the man he maybe killed. Graves, he comments, "You're wondering if it was your bullet that killed him?" Joe asks, I wasn't even sure I hit him." Graves to this responds, "Maybe you didn't." Joe questions, "You mean you don't know?" Graves answers, and when he was reported dead, the organization I was working for had interests that needed tending to. I made sure they were. I didn't really have time nor the inclination to identify which shooter fired the fatal shot. I mean, there were 8 wounds, 2 men, 5.6 seconds away from the target. One more man glanced with the fragment of one more bullet, and you fired, once? You hit the man in the front seat, right? The one with 5 wounds? 3 shots were reported. Assuming yours hit its mark, that makes 4 bullets, 9 wounds, 3 shots. I mean, do the math. Joe says, I have. Once it happened, I knew I wasn't acting alone, that you'd done something. Graves answers, I had nothing to do with the other 3 gunmen. Joe questions 3. Graves answers, I guess you didn't bother doing all the math. I just always assumed. I never suggested when or where you should act on the information I provided. But you chose Dallas. You want me to tell you why? Because it made sense. He'd be out in the open. A rare occurrence for a man in his position. It made sense to his enemies as well. But trust me, the only magic bullet fired that day was yours. We then see an image of Joe DiMaggio firing from the grassy knolls. In case you haven't figured it all out, they're implying here that Joe DiMaggio was involved in the Kennedy assassination. He might have even fired the bullet that killed Kennedy, although there were at least 3 other gunmen, and supposedly Graves provided irrefutable proof to DiMaggio that Kennedy was responsible for murdering Marilyn. Joe, he comments to Graves, all these years, I thought I was part of some conspiracy. Graves tells him, nope, just a coincidence. Marilyn, she was every man's desire, and for a powerful man like Kennedy, desire becomes reality with a simple phone call. Now your ex, she had a bad way of mistaking desire for love. Didn't understand the reality of what going public with her affair would cost him. But he did, and one thing you never do to powerful men is jeopardize their hold on the short hairs of power. It's ironic that his own assassination was for the very same reason. That is, if it wasn't your bullet that killed him. Joe questions, and if it was? Graves responds, well then, you and only you know why he really died. Joe, he feels kind of bad, though, that Kennedy died. I mean, his death affected the entire world. Graves tells Joe, well, what about the death that he ordered? The one that affected you? Don't concern yourself with the big picture, because the answer to my question is right there. Graves points to Joe's heart. He says, in the details. Joe asks Graves if he'll do him a favor. Graves will. Graves goes to visit Marilyn in the cemetery, and he places some roses by her grave. 100 Bullets, Issue 28. Contrabandolero, Part 1 of 3. In this issue, we are introduced to another Minuteman character. This one is named Wylie Times, aka the Point Man. When Wylie was a Minuteman, he was considered the most intelligent and focused of the group. He was the best marksman and the deadliest with a gun. He was called the Point Man because every shot he fired had a point to it. He never wasted a round. Wylie has not been awoken yet. He still has no memories of his life as a Minuteman. And for now, he is just working in a seemingly unimportant gas station in Texas. Wylie working in this gas station is definitely a little bit of a slacker. He's barely working and he's just watching Jerry Springer on TV. A customer named 8-Ball comes in. 8-Ball was actually a very minor character in 100 Bullets' first story arc. 8-Ball was friends in the gang with Emilio Cordova, who was Dizzy Cordova's brother. 8-Ball comes into the gas station and gives Wylie his credit card, and then 8-Ball goes outside and starts filling up his car. Wylie, he is still entranced watching Jerry Springer. Eventually, he tries to charge the card and sees it is declined, most likely stolen. Wylie goes outside to confront 8-Ball, but by this point, 8-Ball has already filled up his tank and is driving off. While 8-Ball is heading down the street, he sticks his middle finger out the window at Wylie. Wylie is annoyed, but he eventually returns back to his gas station. The next customer arrives. The next customer is Joseph Shepard with Dizzy Cordova. Wylie eyes Dizzy and is definitely attracted to her. Dizzy goes inside to pick up some refreshments, while Wylie fills up Shepard's car. Wylie and Shepard make some monotonous conversation about how boring it is here, and then eventually Dizzy returns with 2 sodas from the store, and Shepard pays for the gas and the drinks, and him and Dizzy head off. Later that night, down at the local bar in town, Wylie goes to hang out with 2 people he's kind of friends with. One of them is a guy named Hopper. Hopper's a little bit of a sleazy greaseball kind of type. Hopper's talking to his friend, Dr. Dan. Dr. Dan is not a real doctor. He's actually kind of a fatter hillbilly type. I have a feeling the doctor nickname is kind of a joke. Hopper is telling Dr. Dan that he has a job coming in tonight. They're gonna meet with a guy from out of town to discuss it. Wylie joins them at the bar. They all talk for a bit, and then eventually Hopper and Dr. Dan want to play some ping pong. Hopper, who's somewhat of a ping pong aficionado, he says he's gonna go out to his car to get his paddle, as Hopper has a custom ping pong paddle with his name written in the handle. As Hopper leaves the bar to get his paddle, Wylie and Dr. Dan talk some more. Dr. Dan tells Wylie that him and Hopper have a real score cooking tonight. As Wylie and Dr. Dan drink, eventually Hopper, he gets violently tossed through the bar door and he falls to the floor. Dizzy Cordova was the one that beat him up and threw him inside. From what I infer, I believe Hopper was hitting on Dizzy in the parking lot. He must have said something inappropriate to her that Dizzy took offense to. So Dizzy beat him up and threw him inside the bar. Wylie is a little bit unfazed by this. He walks over to Hopper, picks up Hopper's ping pong paddle, and Wylie then comments, "I got next game." Wylie, he's playing some ping pong while Hopper is put on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. Eventually, Dr. Dan gets a little nervous though. He tells Wylie that he needs a favor. Dr. Dan pulls Wylie outside. He tells him, "You know that out-of-town guy that I was talking about that we're meeting tonight? Well, we're gonna discuss the job, and the problem is, he's been talking to Hopper, and he won't do business with anyone but Hopper. But he's only been talking to Hopper on the phone. He has no idea what he looks like." So Dr. Dan asks Wylie if he can pretend to be Hopper for this meeting. Wylie, annoyed, is going to go along with this. So in the back of this alley, they talk to this guy that is going to pay them for this job. Wylie is annoyed when he sees who it is. It is that gangster 8-Ball, the guy that skipped out on paying for the gas earlier. When Wylie sees 8-Ball, he comments to Dr. Dan, "That bastard dashed out on me, Dan. That shit comes out of my pay." 8-Ball tells Wylie to relax. He gives him the money for the gas earlier. 8-Ball, he then gets a little suspicious. Is this guy, Wylie, actually this Hopper? 8-Ball asks, "So you're Hopper, the real badass motherfucker I've been speaking to on the phone the past few weeks, yeah? That leaves me with a lot of questions. What the hell are you doing working for some minimum ass wage?" 8-Ball's wondering if Wylie really is this Hopper. Why is he working at a gas station? Dr. Dan Lyon says, "It's just a cover. The best cover in the world, see, really. He owns the place, but under a different name, and so then he hired himself, and this is where it gets brilliant. All the money that he pulls in, he's only got to pay taxes for his piddly minimum wage job. Hopper's a genius, man." 8-Ball sticks a gun to Wylie's head. He says, "He may be, but I don't believe it. Then 8-Ball pauses. Wylie is still holding the ping pong paddle, the one that was Hopper's, that has Hopper's name written on it. This impresses 8-Ball. He comments, "Oh man, you got your own ping pong paddle? Damn, alright. Hopper, here's the deal." 8-Ball then informs them that the plan is not for tonight, but for tomorrow instead. All they need for the job is a driver's license. They just gotta drive to Juarez, Mexico, pick up a package, and then bring it back across the border here to America. After they discuss some more of the details, eventually 8-Ball takes off. As he's driving away in his car, he tells Wylie, "You know your cover job working at the gas station? You ask me, paying taxes even on some shit job? That's a bad idea." After their meeting, Wylie heads home for the night. Wylie appears to be staying in a shitty rundown motel called the Sleepy Town. When Wylie walks into the parking lot, he sees Dizzy is there. She's drinking some champagne on the second floor. Wylie himself is drinking a beer. He asks Dizzy, "You want one?" Dizzy replies, "No thanks, I'm drinking champagne." Wylie asks, "What's her name?" Dizzy answers, "Dizzy. Who are you?" Wylie, he pauses. Then he looks at Hopper's ping pong paddle, and then he replies to Dizzy, "That's a good question. Say, just for future reference, what did that guy whose ass you kicked say to you in the bar?" Dizzy, she just answers, "He said something I didn't want to hear." Wylie, he tells Dizzy goodnight, and then he goes into his room. Dizzy continues sitting there on that second floor, drinking her champagne. Eventually, Shepard steps out of their room. Dizzy asks Shepard, "So he's our man?" Shepard answers, "You heard what he said." So it appears like Shepard and Dizzy were not just passing through this small town. They are here for Wylie for whatever reason. 100 Bullets, Issue 29, Contrabandolero, Part 2 of 3. Wylie passed out for the night on a chair drinking beer in front of his motel room door. When he wakes up in the morning, Dizzy is standing in front of him. She says, "Good morning" to him. Wylie to this responds, "What's so good about it?" Dizzy replies, "Well, not too hot yet." Wylie, he immediately starts drinking some more beer. He offers Dizzy one. Dizzy asks him, "Are you just gonna drink all day?" Wylie answers, "If I get my way, I am." Dizzy questions Wylie, "Were you out here all night?" Wylie answers, "I think so. I must have dozed off in this comfy chair." Dizzy quips, "Dozed off, more like you passed out." Wylie explains, "I have a problem sleeping. Few of these beers? No problem." Dizzy tells Wylie that he should see a doctor. Wylie, he says, "Here comes one right now." Wylie's friend, Dr. Dan, shows up in a car. Dr. Dan is picking up a Wylie for their job, transporting some stuff from Mexico. As Wylie's heading off, Dizzy asks, "Where are you going?" Wylie answers, "Juarez, Mexico. Me and the doc here are bullfighters." As Wylie and Dr. Dan leave, Dizzy questions bullfighters. Shepard, who is listening, jumps in and says, "More like bullshitters." Wylie and Dr. Dan then drive over to meet 8-Ball. 8-Ball gives them an address on a piece of paper. He tells them they're meeting a man named Coochie. He also warns them they better not fuck this job up. Elsewhere, separately, Dizzy and Shepard traveled to Juarez, Mexico, too. Dizzy is shocked at the lawlessness here. Shepard tells her the police have no sway. That's reserved for Las Pandillas, the gangs, and Los Narcos, the drug traffickers. Half the people make a living through the underground economy here, which means they sell anything on the streets, including themselves. Funny thing, all that separates the Mexican nightmare from the American dream is 30 feet of dirty water. Dizzy asks, "What are we doing here?" Shepard answers, "Same thing our friends will be doing, I bet. Looking for trouble." Dizzy and Shepard then enter what looks like the sketchiest bar you've ever seen. There they meet a very sketchy-looking dude, a guy named Mick Kuchenko, also known by the nickname Coochie. He is the man that Wylie and Dr. Dan are supposed to meet later. Mick looks like a tough son of a bitch with lots of tattoos. He is sporting a kilt, though. Mick and Shepard talk. Mick is apparently an exporter. He gets things across the border from Mexico to America. Shepard asks Mick about Wylie Times and the job that Wylie is doing. Shepard wants Mick to contact him if he hears anything about this Wylie down here. Mick says he will. Back in America, in Texas, in the bar that Wylie Times, Dr. Dan, and Hopper were hanging out in a few nights ago, we see 8-Ball is there. 8-Ball is enjoying a beer when the man beside him is the real Hopper. Remember, right now, 8-Ball is under the impression that Wylie Times was Hopper. So some other people there in the bar are joking to the real Hopper and telling him, "Haha, Hopper, I can't believe you got your ass kicked by a girl." Hopper yells back at the men, telling them to shut up, and they tell him, "Take it easy, Hopper." 8-Ball, overhearing this conversation, asks, "Yo, why these boys calling you Hopper?" It looks like 8-Ball is going to finally learn the truth that Wylie is not who he said he was. Back down in Juarez, Mexico, Wylie Times and Dr. Dan have arrived at the same sketchy bar that Shepard was in earlier. They meet Mick Kuchenko, aka Coochie, their contact down here. Coochie then brings them over to the truck they're going to be driving across the border. He gives them some instructions. He says, "When you get to customs, go to the booth, 6th from the left. You tell the agent your name. It's all arranged. Neat and tidy. Piece of cake. Give the truck to 8-Ball on the other side. He gives you the money. Done deal." They then open the truck doors. In addition to whatever they are hauling in the back of the truck, they are also to transport this girl, Angelina, across the border. Coochie tells them they're to take her too. Wylie, he replies, "Fuck no." Coochie answers, "Fuck yes. I made a promise to Angelina's father. You keep it for me." Dr. Dan, he demands more money, saying she'll cost extra. Wylie tells Dan to shut up. They'll transport her, whatever. Before Wylie and Dr. Dan are about to leave, Coochie asks, "One more thing. Wylie Times, you know of him?" Coochie thinks Wylie is Hopper. He does not know that he is actually Wylie himself. Wylie, he lies and says that he is Hopper and he's never heard of the guy. Finally, they all get going. Dr. Dan is driving the car they came in ahead of Wylie, and Wylie is driving the truck with all of the goods, as well as with this Angelina girl. As Wylie is driving, though, he's nervous. He's swearing to himself. Why the hell was this Coochie guy asking for him? Wylie, he's driving and saying, "Fuck, fuck, 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 fuckity, fuck, 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 fuck." The girl beside Wylie, her English is not very good, but she hears Wylie swearing and saying fuck, and she asks, "You want to fuck?" Wylie tells the girl no. The girl responds, "You sure?" Wylie affirms her with another no. Wylie continues driving, but then something bad happens. Dr. Dan, who's in the car ahead, he gets stopped in the road. There are 2 cars parked in the road in front of him. Men with guns get out of those cars, and they force Dr. Dan out of his car. Wylie, watching all this going down, says to himself, "Oh, fuck." Angelina, she asks again, "Oh, now we fuck." Wylie corrects her, "No, now we fucked." The men with guns grab Dr. Dan. They point a pistol to his head. Dan, he turns back and looks at Wylie, and then he gets his head blown off. Wylie's in shock. Oh shit, what is he gonna do? Angelina, though, she just starts grabbing Wylie and trying to kiss him. 100 Bullets, Issue 30, Contrabandolero, Part 3 of 3. Angelina, she's grabbing at Wylie. She wants to get some action, but then someone comes over to their truck. They open the car door, they grab Angelina and toss her to the floor of the car. They then point their gun on Wylie. The men pull Wylie from the truck, and they take his wallet and search if he has any valuables on him. They don't find much. His wallet has about $15 in it, and an old condom. They start yelling Spanish shit at Wylie. Wylie doesn't understand them, though. All of a sudden, though, all of these thieves get gunned down by a machine gun. The bullets are just spraying everywhere, and after about 10 or 15 seconds, everyone is dead except for Wylie and Angelina. It turns out that the people that were robbing them were just common thieves down here in this sketchy part of Mexico, and Wylie was saved by Angelina. She grabbed the gun because it was under the seat of the truck, and she used it on all of these men. Angelina, she then finds Wylie hiding on the ground, and she says to him, "You okay now, boyfriend?" Elsewhere, near the border, Shepard and Dizzy are having some drinks at a restaurant that is on the way to the border to America. Dizzy questions Shepard. "Wylie, he don't seem to be anything like you said he'd be." Shepard answers, "He isn't." Dizzy asks, "You sure he's the right guy?" Shepard answers, "Don't worry about it." After a few more moments, Dizzy questions Shepard, "Mr. Shepard, you got a first name?" Now, I've already told all of you watching my videos that his name is Joseph Shepard, but at this point in the story, that is a mystery. Shepard has not shared his first name. And he does not share it right now. Shepard tells Dizzy, "I sure do. It's Mr." Dizzy, frustrated, replies, "Why you always gotta be playing me?" Shepard answers, "'Cause fate dropped you in my sandbox, Dizzy." Same with our man Wylie. Speaking of which, look, he's on the swings. Do us a favor, Dizzy. Give him a push. Wylie and Angelina are continuing their drive in the truck across the border. Right now, they are parked in the long line, waiting to go. Dizzy spots Wylie and walks over to his truck. She opens the passenger door. Angelina, she's ready to use that machine gun on Dizzy, but Wylie holds her back. Dizzy starts talking to Wylie and asking him, "What are you doing here?" Wylie answers, "Looking for you." Dizzy replies, "Really? You seem sort of smart to me. Who's this?" Wylie answers, "Angelina." Dizzy, she ends up getting into the passenger seat beside them. She asks, "What's in the truck?" Wylie answers, "Beats me." Dizzy questions, "Well then, why are you driving it?" Wylie answers, "Beats me too." Dizzy, suspecting that Wylie is transporting something stupid that he shouldn't, like dope or something, tells him, "Come on, pull over and we'll walk across the border." Wylie tells her, "I can't. I owe it to Dan." Dizzy, she says, "That phony doctor, you owe it to him?" Wylie replies, "Yeah, he's dead. He's got a frickin' hole in his head. Hijackers. It was awful shit. They had the same thing in mind for me, but Angelina here went all Scarface and rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and now they're dead. Just like Dan. Fuck." Angelina, hearing the F-word, questions, "Oh, we fucking America?" Wylie, exasperated, says, "Christ." Wylie asks Angelina, "Where'd you get that gun anyway?" Angelina answers, "Coochie, he leave under seat. Say, Hopper, no hanky-panky." Dizzy asks, Who's Hopper?" Angelina answers, "Him, he Hopper. My boyfriend. Yes, hanky-panky." Wylie, annoyed, says, "I'm not your boyfriend. I'm your babysitter." Dizzy jokes, "Sounds like forbidden love to me." Wylie's pushing Angelina off of him, but Angelina continues her pursuits. Eventually, Wylie, Angelina, and Dizzy arrive at the border gate crossing they're supposed to go to. Wylie tells the man, "I'm a Hopper." Wylie was under the impression that all he had to do was say he was Hopper and he would be waved through. But instead, the border agent replies, "So?" Wylie replies, "I said I'm Hopper. Hopper." The border agent continues and says, "And I said, so. Wylie, confused, says, "So, this is the 6th booth from the left, right?" The border agent asks, "Yeah, so?" Wylie says, "So? There's nothing in the truck, sir?" The border agent, he then tells Wylie, "Don't get all polite with me, buddy. I want my piece." Wylie is so confused. He asks, "You get a piece? Look, man, Coochie told me to..." The border agent says, "Shut up, man. Not only names, for Christ's sake, Jesus." Under the seat. Eventually, Wylie realizes the border agent, he wants the gun. That is what he wants in exchange for letting him cross the border. Angelina, she does not want to give up the gun, but Dizzy elbows her in the face, and then Wylie grabs the gun and gives it to the agent. And finally, they are waved through without incident and back in America. Eventually, Wylie, Dizzy, and Angelina drive the truck all the way back to the motel that Wylie and Dizzy were staying at. Wylie sits down in a chair, then he laments of how Dr. Dan is dead. He's really dead. Dizzy asks, were you too close? Wylie answers, not close, but I'd see him every night at the bar and we'd bullshit a lot and talk about ball or chicks and goof on people, that kind of crap. Dizzy comments sarcastically, sounds like a rewarding relationship if you feel like wasting time. Wylie to this says, Dizzy, I love wasting time. I live to waste time. You know why? Because time's the only thing I got plenty of. While the two of them are talking, Angelina is wandering around, looking at stuff. Eventually, Dizzy and Wylie get curious. They want to see, what were they transporting in the end, all this time? Dizzy opens the back of the truck. She peers inside and sees a whole bunch of birds. Fancy-looking parrots. They are confused. Eventually, the two of them get surprised by Hopper, the real Hopper, and 8-Ball. 8-Ball has grabbed Angelina and is holding a gun to her head. Wylie and Dizzy look at both Hopper and 8-Ball. Then Dizzy, she knows 8-Ball from her time back in the hood in Chicago. 8-Ball ran in their crew. Dizzy, seeing 8-Ball, questions, 8-Ball? 8-Ball replies, Dizzy? Angelina, seeing the real Hopper, asks, Hopper? Hopper, seeing Wylie, says, Wylie! Wylie, looking in the truck, he comments, fucking birds. 8-Ball explains, these here are rare parrots. They get me upwards of $100,000 a pop. Hopper, impressed, says, for a bird? 8-Ball continues, rich people into some crazy shit, know what I'm saying? Besides, dealing birds is a lot safer than pushing rock. Wylie eventually explains that Dr. Dan is dead. Hopper is really sad to hear that. Dizzy eventually yells at 8-Ball, telling him, holster that gat. 8-Ball, getting angry, replies, don't tell me what to do, bitch. You ain't your brother, and no one's seen you since all that shit went down. What's up with that, Diz? People talk. Dizzy continues yelling for 8-Ball to drop his gun. They both continue yelling at each other. Eventually, Hopper, distraught over the death of Dr. Dan, decides to step in and do something. He begins to try to wrestle 8-Ball's gun away from him. There's a struggle. 8-Ball drops his gun and Dr. Dan fires his pistol into the air. Bang, bang, bang. No one gets injured, but the loud noise of the gunfire causes the rare parrots to fly out of the truck and away. 8-Ball then grows furious. He yells, you fucking loco! Why the hell did you do that? Hopper, with tears in his eyes, says, Dr. Dan died, Christ, for some frickin' birds. Hopper then asks Wylie, Wylie, can I have my ping pong paddle back? 8-Ball, frustrated, says, this is bullshit. I ain't going back to Chicago empty-handed. A few hours later, after the dust settles, 8-Ball and Hopper have left. Wylie and Dizzy are sitting outside, and rare parrots are flying about the area, those that haven't flown away completely yet. Shepard, he returns from the store with some beers. He asks, what did I miss? Dizzy answers, I'm not sure. Shepard tells Dizzy, well, get your things, Dizzy, we gotta go. Shepard gives Wylie some beer. Wylie says, thanks. Shepard tells him, don't mention it, Wylie. Wylie, thinking about it, says, hey, I don't remember telling you my name. Shepard answers, it was a long time ago. Wylie, confused, says, no, it was 2 days ago, man. That was the first time I've ever seen you. Shepard responds, no, that was the first time we've seen each other since Atlantic City. Shepard is referring to Wylie's past life as a Minuteman. Wylie, though, still cannot remember that time. So Wylie, still confused, replies, sorry, amigo, I've never been. You got the wrong guy. Dizzy tells Shepard, see, I told you had the wrong guy. Shepard scratches his chin and replies, maybe I do, and maybe I wish I knew the word that would make you the right guy. Wylie says, what the hell's that supposed to mean? Shepard continues, call me when you find out, Wylie. Eventually, Shepard and Dizzy take off. So, Shepard and Dizzy came here to Texas to try and wake up Wylie and take him with them. The problem is, though, Shepard does not know the key word that will wake a Minuteman up. That word is Croatoa. We saw it used with Cole Burns several volumes ago. Agent Graves seems to be the only one that knows that is the key trigger word. Shepard is unaware of it, however. Shepard here is a little frustrated because he didn't know that word and he couldn't wake Wylie up, so he is forced to kind of just abandon Wylie for now and let Wylie stay here while he goes on with Dizzy. Elsewhere, 8-Ball goes to get some gas, and he didn't want to leave empty-handed, so he took the girl Angelina with him. And that is the end of Volume 4. Alright, so that was Volume 4. Let me go through my thoughts on the various storylines in this one. The first storyline was The Mimic, and that was one issue where we saw Benito and Shepard talking, and we learned some of the history and relationship between Graves and Shepard and the Trust, and they are alluding to some of the things in the past that we don't have a clear picture on. And I thought it was a pretty okay issue just to sort of expand the world a bit and give us some glimpses into what may have happened. The next storyline was Sellfish and Out to Sea. That was a two-parter with Jack Daw. So we were being introduced to Jack Daw, the Minuteman who's addicted to drugs. That was not my favorite storyline. I think Jack's kind of an asshole, and I don't really like him as a character, although I think it was an interesting twist how Jack's picture was the one in the attaché. Jack is responsible for messing up his own life, and potentially he contemplates suicide because of it. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I think Graves gave that picture of Jack so that Jack would either off himself or finally move on and get better and get clean. So kind of intriguing. Next storyline was Red Prince Blues, and that was a great one. That was in Atlantic City, and we meet the full members of the Trust, and we see them have a meeting, which was great. And on top of that, we also have some side plots with Benito and Megan, and their sort of teasing romantic maybe relationship going on there. Benito gambling, and he beats this other guy in gambling, and the guy wants revenge on him. That was a nice little side plot there too. And then Graves and Cole Burns killing a member of the Trust. So this was a plot-heavy storyline and was really great. Next storyline, Mr. Branch and the Family Tree. That one was complete filler. Just Mr. Branch with this prostitute Echo Memoria, and he's sort of filling her and us on what has happened in the series so far. There was some cool splash pages in that issue, but a waste of time, kind of. Issue 27, Idle Chatter, was great. This was a very celebrated, critically acclaimed issue where we have Joe DiMaggio and Agent Graves talking, and it's tied in with Marilyn Monroe and the JFK assassination. I love the crazy places that storyline went to and how they are tweaking and changing history. So I thought it was really fun. And the last storyline in this volume, Contrabandolero, with Wylie Times in Texas, was really, really fun as well. I love the cast of characters we were introduced to, Dizzy and Shepard coming into the story, Wylie Times going to Mexico to transport these rare parrots was kind of funny, really good action, solid tale, and also we kind of have some overall plot trajectory going where Wylie couldn't be woken up by Shepard because Shepard did not know the keyword Croatoa, so that was intriguing too. So overall, I thought this volume was a banger, really good. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the future with Volume 5.